Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most misunderstood and most powerful tools in all of English grammar, the passive voice.
I bet if you've ever taken a writing class, you've heard this one. It gets drilled into our heads, right? It's treated like this big, clunky mistake that you have to hunt down and get rid of in your writing.
But here's the thing. Is it really that black and white? Is the passive voice just plain wrong? Well, we're about to bust that myth wide open. Because it's not a mistake at all. It's actually a sophisticated and necessary tool, but only when you know how to use it right.
So here's what we've got on tab. We'll start with why the passive voice gets such a bad rap. Then we'll break down the active versus passive. We'll cover how to form it, and then, the most important part, when to actually use it. We'll see it in action, and by the end, you'll be a master of your own voice.
Okay, so first up, why does the passive voice get such a bad rap? Well, it's mostly because its counterpart, the active voice, is just so direct and full of energy. I mean, think about it. The dog bit the man. It's short, it's punchy, it gets right to the point. Passive senses can sometimes feel a little weaker or more roundabout, and that's why teachers often tell us to stay away from them.
All right, let's get to the real heart of the matter. The difference between active and passive isn't really about what's good or bad. It's all about focus. I love calling this the great switcheroo because that's exactly what it is.
The key thing to get, and I mean really get, is this. In the passive voice, the thing that gets the action done to it becomes the star of the show. The entire sense gets flipped on its head to shine the spotlight on the receiver, not the doer.
So take a look. On one side, you've got the active voice. Rita is the subject, and she's the one doing the writing. Simple. But then, poof, on the other side, a letter is now the subject. The letter isn't doing a thing, right? It's just sitting there, receiving the action. That's the switcheroo.
So how do you actually make this happen? It's a simple recipe, really. You start with your active sentence, you find the object, in this case, the man, you slide it over to the front to be the new subject. Then you tweak the verb. It becomes a form of to be plus the past participle. So bit becomes was bitten. And if you want, you can add the original doer at the end with the word by. Easy.
Okay, so we've got the what. Now let's nail down the how. And trust me, it's not some crazy complicated grammar magic. Forming the passive voice is all about one simple secret formula.
This right here, this is the magic formula. Your subject, that's the receiver, remember, plus some form of the verb to be, and then the past participle of your main verb. That's it. That's the whole shebang.
And the cool part is, this formula is your best friend across pretty much all the tenses. You see how words like understood, cleaned, and answered stay the same? That's the past participle. The only thing that changes is the to be verb. It morphs into is, was, has been, will be, whatever it needs to be to fit the tense.
Okay, this is where things get really, really cool, because we're moving past just how to do it and into why you'd want to. So from now on, I want you to stop thinking of the passive voice as a grammar mistake. Think of it as your secret weapon, your communication superpower.
So, when do you unleash this superpower? Well, there are basically 4 key situations where the passive voice isn't just okay, it's actually the better choice. It's all about controlling what your audience pays attention to.
All right, reason number 1, emphasis. Sometimes the thing that received the action is just way more important to the story than whoever did it.
I mean, really think about this one. What's the interesting part of that sentence? The house, right? The fact that it's from 1654 is the whole point. Who actually built it? Honestly, who cares? They're long gone. The passive voice puts the spotlight right where it belongs, on the house.
Okay, next up, the passive voice is an absolute lifesaver when the person doing the action is a total mystery, or it's super obvious, or it just, well, it doesn't matter.
In this example, what's the story? A part was stolen. That's the problem. We use the passive voice because we have no idea who the thief is. If we said, someone stole my catalytic converter, does that help? Nope. My catalytic converter was stolen, gets right to the point and puts the focus on what happened.
Oh, this is a huge one, especially if you do any kind of academic or professional writing. The passive voice helps you sound more objective, more scientific. It takes the personal I think or we found out of the equation. You hear that? It sounds so official, formal.
In a science paper or a business report, you want the focus to be on the data, on the findings, not on the person who did the research. The passive voice ends that layer of authority.
And last but definitely not least, the passive voice is your go-to for diplomacy. It lets you talk about a mistake or a problem without making it a blame game, which, is super important in professional settings.
Just look at the difference here. The active one, the manager forgot. Yikes, that's throwing the manager right under the bus. But the passive version, the report wasn't submitted on time. See, it states the fact, the report is late, without calling anyone out. It's a much softer, more professional way to handle things.
All right, you've learned the secrets. Now let's go spot this thing in the wild. I promise, once you start looking for it, you'll see it everywhere.
News headlines are full of this. Why? Because when a bank is robbed, the big news is the robbery itself. They usually don't know who the robbers are yet.
In history books and science, the discovery is the hero of the story. Using the passive puts penicillin in the spotlight, and then we can still give a nod to Alexander Fleming with that by phrase.
Think about civics. Of course, the people elect the president. We don't need to say it. The important piece of information is the process, the fact that it happens every 4 years.
And of course, in the art world, the masterpiece is always the main character. This sentence is structured to put the Mona Lisa first, right where she belongs.
Okay, your turn. Quick pop quiz. How would you rewrite this sentence to put the focus on the poorhouses instead of the storm? Give it a shot.
Boom, there you go. A lot of houses moves to the front, becoming the subject. The verb becomes have been damaged. You nailed it. You just used the passive voice with intention. All right, let's wrap this all up. We started off thinking of the passive voice as this big problem, but now we know it's actually an incredibly useful, powerful tool.
If you remember only one thing from our time together today, let it be this. The goal is not to avoid the passive voice, it's to use it with purpose. It's about choosing the right tool for the job to get your message across perfectly.
So let's do a super quick recap. What is it? It's when the object becomes the subject. How do you form it? With be plus the past participle. And why do we use it? For emphasis, to sound formal, and to be diplomatic. The choice and the power is all yours.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? Being good with language isn't about memorizing a bunch of rigid rules. It's about understanding your options so you can be a more flexible and effective communicator.
So I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. As you go about your day, reading stuff online, watching the news, looking at emails, keep your eyes and ears open. Notice when the passive voice is being used. And more importantly, ask yourself why. Why was that choice made?